Hello, scaredy cats. It's me, Scaredy Matt, and I'm sick. I've got some kind of stomach flu or a chest cold or something. I don't know what it is. Do you think that's gonna stop me from making videos for you? Maybe. Let me tell you something else. The Friday the 13th movies don't make any sense, and they're not very good. I mean, sure, most of them are pretty fun to watch for one reason or another, but if you really sit back and think about what's happening in these movies, they don't make a lot of sense. Movie-to-movie continuity is spotty, but never just completely thrown out the window like it probably should be. And the storyline and character motivations just change in bizarre and unexplained ways. It's pretty clear when you watch these movies the contempt that most of the people making them felt for the franchise. Like, you've got this film series that is making tons of money, and everybody likes it, and all you gotta do is keep sticking to the same formula because that's the thing people want. And sticking to formulas is like the thing studios love to do. It should be easy. But instead, they take all these weird detours and creative twists that just don't work. And these movies get weirder and less coherent as they go on. I want you to keep something in mind as I discuss these movies. What is Jason's motivation? Why does he kill people? Oh, and by the way, this is gonna have spoilers for the entire Friday the 13th franchise, but who fucking cares? Like, you don't watch these movies for the story, so just get over it. Okay, part one. Famously, Jason's not the killer in this one. It's Pamela Voorhees, his mother. She's killing all the kids because she hates camp counselors who aren't diligent enough. Sure, makes sense. Pretty contrived, but okay, nothing to complain about here. Then in the last few seconds, Jason, who drowned 20 years ago, turns out to be a zombie, and he pops out of the lake. Classic ending. Good twist. Kind of a boring movie, but, you know, makes sense. Nothing to complain about on this one. Part 2. Jason is now a fully grown, alive man that, wait, what? He's dead. Even if we accept that the last scene in part 1 was a dream, and we're not really given any reason to, that's the whole premise of the first movie. If he was still alive, why would his mom want to get revenge on the camp counselors who let him die? Maybe she didn't know, except, you know, the movie goes out of its way to show you that Jason is obsessed with his mother, and he sets up a shrine to her decomposing corpse. So he was resurrected from drowning, and then stayed away from his mother for like 20 years despite being obsessed with her. Okay, I guess the last scene in the movie wasn't a dream. He did come back to life somehow. But also, between movies, reverse decomposed and aged like 20 years in a week or so. Did the people who make this movie even watch the first one? Part 3. Jason finds a hockey mask that a prop comic left in a bag after a prank where he tried to scare someone with it, even though, you know, hockey masks aren't, like, inherently scary. Like, they're scary now because Jason wore one, but he hadn't at that point. Whatever, Jason decides, you know what? I'm gonna wear this for the rest of my life. This mask is my new thing, it's what I like to wear. Also, his face looks nothing like the other two versions of him we've seen so far. Then at the end, the stinger from the first movie is repeated, except it's Pamela Voorhees now. I guess that's a dream too, because it never comes up again. Part 4, Jason's back doing his thing. They thought he was dead, turns out he wasn't for some reason. We're introduced to Tommy Jarvis, the closest thing Jason has to a nemesis. In this movie, he's a little boy obsessed with monster makeup, and he tricks Jason in the end by dressing up as a little boy version of him, which makes Jason not want to attack him. Now this is kind of similar to a ploy they pulled in part 2, where the missus dressed up like his mom. And that made sense, because Jason wouldn't want to kill his mom. He's obsessed with his mom, but does Jason think this kid is what? Does he think the kid is a memory? His reflection? Why would Tommy even think to do this? He isn't aware of the ending of part 2. How did he come to this strategy? Like, you're being attacked by a murderer. I know what I'll do. I'll look like the murderer. Then he won't want to kill me because I look like him. But not like he does now. I'll look like he did, like I assume he did when he was a kid, to make him not want to murder me. Anyway, Jason dies, super for real this time, and this kid Tommy is developing some dark triad personality traits. Part 5. Jason is still dead, but Tommy is chill now. The Jason in this one is a paramedic named Roy whose son was killed by a guy at a halfway house. So he blames all of the people at the halfway house for some reason and tried to kill all of them. Also, he had to frame Jason for it, even though Jason at this point would have been dead for like a decade because, you know, Tommy Jarvis is a full-grown man. Then it turns out that Tommy is a Jason now. He was so scared of Jason that he became a Jason. Boy, I can't wait to see how the next movie handles this plot line that the franchise spent 2 movies building up while also somehow simultaneously ignoring. Okay, now buckle up, because it's about to get weird. That's right, up until now, it has yet to be weird. Part 6. Tommy's not a Jason anymore, he's chill again, and he digs up Jason's body for some reason, and then Jason gets struck by lightning, which brings him back to life as an immortal zombie, so... okay, we'll accept that. 6 movies into the franchise, there are zombies now. Used to be just the guy with the knife who was running around killing people, fairly grounded story. Now, there are zombies. So, get used to that. Anywho, Tommy traps Jason in Crystal Lake with chains, and then he's never seen again. Tommy, I mean, not Jason. Jason's in all of these movies from now on. Part 7. Tina moves into a house by Crystal Lake and kills her dad by collapsing a boathouse on him with psychic powers. Then, she's a teenager, and Jason comes back to life, except he looks way cooler now, and he has to fight Tina, who has telekinesis. No, I am not joking. Tina subdues Jason by summoning the ghost of her dead dad to drag him under the water. Her dead dad, by the way, was an abusive alcoholic who was literally beating her mom when he died, so cool. Let's just step aside from the logic of this for a moment, because there is none. Emotionally, this is kind of a fucked up ending, right? Like, Tina's whole arc is that she feels bad about accidentally killing her father, who totally deserved it. And instead of like coming to terms with that herself, her ghost abuser is like, nah, it's cool, 'cause I said so. Then there's Friday the 13th, the series. Now, how do you make a Friday the 13th television series? It's easy. You just take a completely different series about a pair of cousins hunting down cursed antiques and call it Friday the 13th, the series, for no reason. What does that have to do with Friday the 13th? Nothing, except Frank Mancuso was a producer on both, so fuck you. Part 8. Jason gets brought back to life when an anchor crosses some wires and shocks him or whatever. Who cares at this point? I guess Ghost Dad went back to the ghost dimension because he didn't do nothing about it. Jason kills some people on a boat and then goes to New York and kills some people there. Why though? His whole gripe is meant to be with camp counselors and people who invade his space at Crystal Lake, so now he just kills everyone he sees? Unless it would be funnier to scare them with his spooky face? Anyway, all the while, one of the characters is getting visits from a ghost child Jason. That's not part of the mythos, Friday the 13th, Part 8. That has never happened before. We're 8 movies into this franchise. You can't just make shit up like that. Then Jason gets melted by toxic waste in the sewer for some reason and turned into a baby. Toxic waste, I guess, works like it does in Ninja Turtles and just changes you into stuff. It doesn't like give you cancer or burn you or, you know, the stuff toxic waste actually does. And I guess the reason that Mrs. was having premonitions about child Jason was so that she would know to turn him into a baby at the end. Part 9. You know what? That didn't happen. Part 8 didn't happen. Strike that from the record. Let's take that one out of continuity because there's no explanation for how Jason is back at Crystal Lake and no longer a goo baby. But he does look like absolute shit now. He's just super lumpy and weird looking, and his mask is all tiny, and it makes his head look enormous. Also, he's less decomposed than in previous movies somehow. Anyway, he gets blown up by the military who know about Jason. Turns out Jason, you thought he was just a guy with a knife. No, he's a little glowy ball that lives inside your body, and he possesses people, you see. That's what he was this whole time, and it just never came up before. Does feel like that little glowy ball could have possessed some people like one of the other dozen or so times this guy has died, but whatever. He's a little glowy ball of souls now. That's fine. Fucking fine. Who cares? Anyway, he needs his great-grandnephew or some shit to be reborn, but he doesn't get him, and is reborn anyway, and then killed again. Then he gets dragged to hell by Freddy Krueger, so let's go ahead and add all of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies to canon. Part X. Actually, forget all of that again, because Part 8 and 9 didn't happen. Jason is captured and put on a spaceship for some reason, and then he becomes a cyborg because, and this makes sense, the ship has nanobots that if you're like a murder zombie, that they will repair you and turn you into a cyborg, right? Because they don't know how to repair Jason, so naturally they turn him into Uber Jason, you know, like they're programmed to, but also they can't fix any of the people Jason kills. And obviously Jason then has to kill everybody on the spaceship because he hates camp counselors. Don't worry though, he gets jettisoned into space, and this movie was pointless and nothing about it ever comes up again. Part Freddy versus Jason. Forget all of that again. None of that happened or is gonna happen, I guess. Put the Nightmare on Elm Street movies back into continuity, except Part 6, which I guess didn't happen because Springwood isn't completely depopulated of children like it was in that movie. But we're going to keep Parts 8, 9, and X out of the continuity because those still didn't happen anymore. I know the ending of Part 9 is the only reason that this crossover was implemented in the first place, but fine, whatever. That movie sucked anyway. Jason, who looks just like absolute shit now, is manipulated by Freddy Krueger pretending to be his mom into killing some kids. Also, he's afraid of water. That's Jason's weakness. You know how Jason was always afraid of water, like when he swims in other movies? Then he chops Freddy's head off, but Freddy is cool with it for some reason. Pretty cool cliffhanger. I wonder how they'll resolve it. Part 1, Number 2. Fuck it! None of the movies happened, except the events of the first one kind of happened. Jason's back. He's a dude again. He gets killed, except he doesn't. You never kill that guy around a lake because he'll just pop out and get you. That's his thing. Then what? Part 1, Number 3. This is where the films turn into what they've always been building towards. Movies that remove themselves from continuity before they're even made so that they don't even come out. They've threatened to make a shitload of Friday the 13th movies, including a winter one and a found footage one back when that was all studios knew how to make. Probably they're gonna do a sequel to Part 1. That's the new hot thing everybody wants to do. Halloween did that, so that, you know, obviously you got an overdue sequel to Part 1. And it'll just be called Friday the 13th. Or maybe they'll do a prequel like Friday the 13th Origins. And you see Jason's dad and he's the murderer in that one. Because murder is genetic and that's why Jason is a murderer. Honestly, fucking do whatever you want with this franchise at this point. How could you possibly damage it any further? Like, make it a musical. Who cares? Have Jason travel back in time to fight the Knights of the Round Table or go to the Old West for a shootout. You know what? Jason and the Muppets both took Manhattan. Maybe they should fight over it. I got 3 words for you. Bride of Jason. What if Jason has until the end of spring break to lose his virginity? What if Jason is trying to teach his son how to be a murderer, but his son is, you know, too interested in doing stuff on his phone? Kids these days. Jason gets a phone call that one of his relatives died and left him a large inheritance, but here's the twist. He's got to spend one night in a haunted house. When Jason accidentally kills Santa Claus, it's up to him to deliver all of the presents to the good little boys and girls out there. Anyway, please like the video and subscribe to Scaredy Cats and turn on notifications, or Jason's gonna get you with his big spooky knife.